Okay, that's a whole other ball game. Okay, so we have the cryptid breeding programs, which are much like, from what I've been told, are much like a dog breeder. Like you go to a dog breeder because you want a purebred German Shepherd, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what they're doing. They're taking something that's been on this planet, ancient races basically of things of like dogmen, let's just say, Sasquatch and werewolves, from what I've been told, and they're just breeding them. Within an hour of him asking me, I sat down and I remote viewed these blind coordinates, didn't know what they were, got a bunch of data, and it appeared to be something underground and with involving giants and stuff. And I was like, whoa, okay. I sent him all my raw data, like all the pages that I had written out on. And I said, here, I hope I'm not super off target, thinking I was just probably off target, but I was getting a whole lot of like military data. And I was thinking, oh crap, here we go. I'm gonna get in trouble for this one. And so, but it was like military stuff. I heard a lot of like soldiers getting yelled at, but I was way deep underground, so I knew it was some kind of underground facility. And I was picking up on giants, and I picked up on people just being exhausted, and like trains and all sorts of weird stuff going on. And it turned out that the target was the 27th floor underground below Area 51, according to testimony given by Colonel Billy Fay Woodard. Okay, and this guy is someone that's like a basically like a SSP, secret space program kind of thing, or just a Navy. I guess he was with the U.S. Navy, I think, or Air Force. I can't remember which one, but he was retired, and he had given some testimony saying that he actually, by the way, he was very eccentric. Okay, but he gave testimony that he lived underground for 11 and a half years. In Inner Earth. He was the liaison to the Inner Earth beings and the U.S. military. Our governments are fully aware of all these entrances to Inner Earth. Another entrance to Inner Earth would be in the Ural Mountains, I believe. I did one of my first remote viewing targets that I did publicly was the Dyatlov Pass incident. And that's where I think it was 9 Russian hikers were found dead under very mysterious circumstances. I remote viewed that, and I was picking up on they were all, I want to say, well, the last 4 that were found, their bodies was like they're all found dead, but they had injuries consisting of like a car accident or whatever. And I was picking up that there was human and ET involvement. Okay, I believe that those hikers, they strayed off path where they were supposed to be going. They trespassed into some kind of area that was off limits, that was the entrance to Inner Earth right there. Well, back in the 1920s, a scientist was using this dye with that liquid in it. He put some of that liquid on some of that dye on a piece of glass and realized that you could see at night with this. So it was like night vision, right? So he made night vision goggles with it. Well, he used it, and apparently like our military got a hold of this stuff. And what it was is that you could not only see at night, like night vision, this is in the 1920s, you could see people's auras. Okay, so it was like an aura seeing liquid if you put it between pieces of glass. And so they made night vision goggles with this stuff, and they tested them out on helicopters in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. Okay, and so they gave out these goggles to some of the gunners on the helicopters. And when they put those things on and they were up in the helicopters, they started shooting at each other, okay, amongst the helicopters, because what they saw when they put these goggles on, which is supposed to be just like night vision, they described it as seeing hell, okay, with demons who never got their comms back to where, they made it to their location. So the other team was sent in. They found all their equipment, body parts strewn everywhere, and they were ambushed by a giant. Okay. Well, I had remote viewed what happened to both teams and what attacked them, and I picked up on 100% giant humans. And my data was suggesting that both teams were sent in on purpose to obtain a sample of a giant for cloning purposes.
Beyond the forbidden. Welcome to Beyond the Forbidden. Today on the show, I got Jessica Jones, somebody that I've been wanting to get on the show for a while. And because especially when it comes to like strange phenomena, Bigfoot, cryptids, and I think she has the nickname the Cryptid Huntress. Welcome, Jessica Jones, Beyond the Forbidden. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing excellent. Thank you for having me today. This will be a good show.
It will be.
Lots of fun.
And it's been a while since I've actually, we're not just going to talk about Bigfoot, but it's been a while since I've actually brought up Bigfoot, on a show. Like, I really haven't had just a Bigfoot show in forever, but just the last time I've probably even brought up Bigfoot or any other kind of cryptids probably been at least since earlier in the year. But, and I usually do about 6 to 8 a month, but, so we're going to have a bunch of newcomers and all that are new to you and your research. That's just how it is. My and to everybody listening, I will give the links to in the description below. And to I want to thank all the Patreon members. I really do appreciate it. And if you're not a member, sign up. You'll get the full show. But even if you're not a member, you will get clips. Whatever the meat and potatoes of what Jessica has to say within the second hour, I'll post and upload some of those clips from the second hour. But I want to thank all the Facebook page members. We're almost to 250,000 followers. I really thank each and every one of you. It's blown up the past couple of years, but yeah. So Jessica, throw everything out there: website, social medias, and all of that.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Well, the best, easiest way to find me is the cryptidhuntress.com. That's my website where all of my social media links are there. Basically, you can find me at the Cryptid Huntress pretty much all over social media. Also, I have a really cool YouTube channel. It's the Cryptid Huntress. And I have live shows there every Wednesday and Thursday. And also, I'm at Spaced Out Radio. I'm a weekend host at Spaced Out Radio, where you can find my shows there. I have live shows every Saturday and Sunday at 10 p.m. there. And it's usually on cryptids, but I mean, I talk about everything, just like you.
I know you do. Yep.
It's like from the secret space program to AI robots and clones to
all the
interdimensional
glasses, all the wooness. I love it.
All the woo. Yeah. But I am a Bigfoot field researcher, and that's how I started out. So my heart's with the cryptids, of course, but I cover everything.
So I think I heard you say you got the name from Dave Scott, which is from Spaced Out Radio, the Cryptid Hunters, correct?
Well, I asked Dave to help me rebrand a little bit because when I first started my YouTube channel, I was just doing like spiritual advice and stuff, and so it was so different back then than what it is today. And I kind of started off doing that. I was going through like a spiritual journey kind of thing, and
we all do. Yeah.
Yeah, so I started off doing that, and I was the Oracle of the South is what my name was. See, because I'm actually trained in remote viewing, and it's something that I do with my team, my Bigfoot field research team. We're all trained in remote viewing, and so I just tapped into my psychic abilities a little more than most people on my team, I guess, and just had a really good time doing that. And so I started a YouTube channel, kind of exploring all that. And I was asked to, when I didn't go public with my Bigfoot field research for like 10 years, I guess, or maybe more. And I was asked to speak at a conference called Camp Disclosure about 2 years ago. And I never plan on going public with my Bigfoot research ever because my teams are pretty secretive.
Well, because a lot of and yes, I can understand.
Well, my teams were pretty under the radar, and except now my buddy Trey Hudson.
Yeah,
now I'm on his team.
That's why I said I get it now. Yeah.
Well, that's public. Okay, so he's more public because he ended up writing a book, but I'm on 3 different field research teams. Okay. And in my first team, Enigma Research Group, we're all trained in remote viewing and we're Bigfoot field researchers. And everything we do is pretty much not public. Okay. And so we didn't talk about that, any of our research publicly. Also, the North Georgia cryptid researchers, we weren't super public with them either. However, Bob Grumpy, the head of my team on that organization, he was on that show Killing Bigfoot, and Bigfoot is real. That's Grumpy. Okay. And he's
really
like
grumpy?
Family.
Is he really grumpy?
No. Well, I mean, he can be. Shoot, we're all grumpy a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, me especially. Whenever I'm hungry, oh my
Me
gosh,
too. You get
it's
hangry.
like, oh yes, like my wife calls me the human garbage disposal. Like when I get hungry, I don't know. I'm the it's that time of the month for me.
Oh my
But
gosh. I get it.
but but
That's funny.
uh, man, I have so many things I want to discuss, and so
Well, I can finish telling you about the why I didn't go public though. Okay.
oh
And
yeah, I
so
forgot about that.
and it was
Yes.
so it was the public aspect. I was asked to speak at a conference, and it was just because I was visiting my one of my best friends who was volunteering at this conference. It was in Georgia, and I went up to go spend the weekend with her up at Unicoi State Park for because they were doing a planning meeting for this conference. And the word got out. Here's the kicker right here, because Trade, the head of that one team that I'm on of
Yep.
ASOG, and we had been working on this thing called the Meadow Project, and it just so happened that that year Trey had written a book and released it, and it was called The Meadow Project: Explorations into the South Skinwalker Ranch. Well, he did that over the time where we had those lockdowns and that the pandemic thing started and all that
Hmm.
stuff. So he wrote a book and he went public with our research basically, and so I was able at that point to kind of talk about my research a little bit more because we kind of had been under some NDAs and things like that. So um, it kind of went out there to where we can talk about some of the stuff we've been doing. I felt more comfortable talking about it. So I went to that to the planning meeting for that conference, and someone had heard, or I don't know, we were talking about. I know I was taking a hike with some of them, and they some of the people there knew that I was a Bigfoot researcher, and one of the guys was asking me about my research, and at some point he goes, "Man, that sure does sound a lot like the Meadow Project and the South Skinwalker Ranch." And it turns out Trey had just been on Coast to Coast AM talking about his book and our research. And I said, "Well, have you read the book?" He said, "Yeah, I bought that book after I heard that guy on Coast to Coast." And I said, "Well, are you familiar with Jessica J in that book?" And he goes, "Oh my God, is that you?" I was like, "Yeah, that's me. I'm in that book." And so the woman that was throwing the conference asked me that day, I believe, if I would speak at her conference. And I, with hesitation, said yes. And it snowballed from there. And that's only been about 2 years. And now I have a show at Spaced Out Radio, and I go all over the country speaking about our research and my personal journey, my research, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's been wild, but I wasn't public before that.
So, since you have gone public, or you may have, like, I guess with your family, because here in Louisiana, it's the Bible Belt, and
Mhm.
it like is it's all a lot of people down here, all the answers in the Bible, you know, and I'm not knocking the Bible. There's a lot of good things in there for sure, but it's hard to talk to a lot of people about these things. That's why I look forward to these shows. Usually about twice a week. I try to do about two a week, and I look forward to them because I can. There's not a whole lot of people I can talk to, and
Yeah.
so my parents don't even know what I do. Like
Oh yeah.
they'll probably try to splash me with some holy water or something. But so how did your family take it? I talk to my family, but they don't know everything. But so how did your family take it? Like with Bigfoot, aliens and everything else, because it can be tough to kind of come out.
Well, I'm actually very lucky to have a weird family. So
I wish.
yeah. Well, I grew up with our family not seeing. They never made fun of me for any of this, and I come from a long line of generations of traditional like stories being passed down through my family of paranormal occurrences. Okay, from back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, my great, I think four greats or three greats back, grandmother was dying, and in her home out in Northwest Georgia, the whole family had come to gather around her as she was passing away. And as she was right before she died, this ball of fireball, they called it a fireball, came out of the woods and circled the house and went underneath the house and inside the house. and it passed in front of everybody in that house and over her bed.
Wow.
And then it went out the door and it went back out into the woods. Okay. So we had stories like that. We also had story of my great grandmother and my great aunt. This is all on my mother's side of the family, by the way, all on the maternal side. My great grandmother and Aunt Charlotte. They were riding down the road. Okay. And they were in Rome, Georgia. And they said that a light came down over their car as they were driving down the highway, and it enveloped the entire car. And they said that's the last thing they remember
Wow.
until they came to, and they were like, it was like an hour or two later, and they were 20 miles down the road in a different county, and they didn't know how they got there.
Missing time and
Yeah.
all that.
Yes. Yes. This was in the 1980s, and they're very like devout Christian women. They both had like the 10 Commandments posters in their front yards and all that. Very super religious, and they attributed that to angels coming and picking them up and taking them out of harm's way, as though they could have been in an accident had that not happened.
I was just about to ask you, how did the worldview change after that? But I guess they kind
They
of,
stuck to their guns on that one. But see,
yeah.
then I came along and I was like, I think y'all were abducted by aliens.
What they had to say about that?
I don't know. Well, they're both passed away now, so I don't think I ever really
Okay.
got to have a good conversation with them. They passed away a while back. My great grandmother did, but she was a seer. Even though she didn't admit to that, I was there. I was actually with her the week that she passed away. She was like 94, I think, when she died, and she was in her bed. We knew that she wasn't going to make it much longer, and so we went to go visit her. And my brother had just died in a car accident. My little brother, and we didn't tell her because we didn't want to upset her. Okay, and I know that's terrible, but at the same time, she was
I
very
get it.
fragile, and
Yeah.
so we went to go visit her, and as I walked in, she said, "Oh, Jessica, hey." She's like, "I can't see you real good." She's like, "Come closer to me." She's like, "So I can see you." She goes, "Oh, and you brought Ben with you." And Ben was my son. My son's name is Ben now, but it was my brother. Was his name was Ben. And she said, "Oh, and you brought Ben with you." And I couldn't believe it, because I was like, "Whoa, Ben
Wow.
died." We still didn't tell her, because it was like he was there with me in the
That
room with us.
that's remarkable.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so it's almost like these, in a good way, that this weirdness has kind of followed you. This woo-ness,
Yes.
you
Well, it's
know.
been in the family. It runs in the family, basically.
Well, have you seen Steven Spielberg's Taken series?
I don't think so.
Intergenerational.
Yeah.
It's like a 10-part series, 10 episodes or something like that. I haven't seen. I need to rewatch it. I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
Just look it up after this show. Taken by Steven Spielberg. It's like a 10
Okay.
part series back in 2000 or 2001, where it's about abductions and how it's generational. That's the
I
main
believe that.
that's the main part I remember. I need to rewatch it. It's been so long, probably at least since 07 or 08. But so let's go ahead and get, I guess, first off, you're a remote viewer. So I hate to ask, these softball questions, because you're going to have people that aren't quite familiar. So I guess
Yeah,
explain to
it's
those
okay.
who may be unfamiliar with remote viewing, Jessica, and like the ins and outs, and
Yeah.
how can it like be a beneficial tool to utilize, to especially if you know how to use it and utilize it.
Yeah. I think it's the most valuable tool in my tool belt when I'm out there doing paranormal field research. So, remote viewing, I didn't know what it was at all until I was taught it. And so I'm, like I said earlier, I'm on 3 separate teams for like field research teams, but we all work together. We all intermingle, and we also work with people from all over the country out in the field. And so, but my OG team, my original team, that's Enigma Research Group. And we had the head of that team was a pretty fantastic remote viewer. Okay. And for people who are not familiar with remote viewing, that is something that our government has used since at least the Cold War era. Okay. At least like the 60s or so. They started utilizing psychic spies. Okay. And Russia was using them. And of course, the United States was like, we got to use them too if they're using them. And or that's how the story goes, at least. And I don't know if they really admit to still using remote viewers in the militaries, but I believe they probably do.
Do you want to help support Beyond Forbidden and receive extra content that's not seen anywhere else? By becoming a patron, a few things you will receive are the full-length 90-minute or 120-minute podcast episode. Members will also receive a private link to the video podcast and will only be exclusive to Patreon members. In-person, face-to-face interviews with some of the most well-known, respected researchers. Behind-the-scenes footage of interviews not seen anywhere else. And that's just a few perks. So what do you have to lose? Cut out one brain-rotting, overly processed Happy Meal a month that doesn't do anything beneficial for your mind, body, and spirit, and become a Patreon for just $5.
But that's just a wild guess right there. So, but yeah,
it's a good book for people to check out by Jim R. Sci Spies. It's a really good book.
Oh yeah, sci spies, absolutely. So that's kind of what we do. We're kind of like psychic spies, but we use it in the field for our research. And so the way it came about us learning as a whole entire team, and it's very unusual to have a Bigfoot field research team who are all trained in remote viewing. Okay, it's not your average everyday field team. But so from the very get-go, from the very beginning, when I started doing field research with that team, I would go out in the field. The first time I ever went on an expedition with them, I had possible ET / a lot of UFO activity that weekend. Okay, a lot. And so we were making the connection to where like the Bigfoot phenomenon is not just Bigfoot, it's connected to a whole bunch of other stuff, including ETs and UFOs. Okay. Mm-hmm. And but there was an incident that happened when I was out there where I had my EVP recorder going and we had some missing time. Okay. The guy that I was out there with, my partner and I, we had broken away to do like a little black ops mission kind of thing, trying to find some Bigfoots. And we were sitting out, hiding in the tree line, camoed out, like
I can just see you out there just.
Yeah. Oh, we were having so much fun. I know. Well, a lot of the guys that I'm out there with are like former military guys and stuff. So, I mean, we're just out there little kamikazes, out there searching for Sasquatch and dog, whatever's out there, dog men, whatever we can find. So we're out there and I had some like ghost hunting equipment with me and stuff and like EVP recorders and K2 meters and you name it, I had it. And so I put an EVP recorder on my leg, on my knee, and all this stuff was happening from like Orbs showing up to like UFO, like craft and stuff. Like we were just inundated with all sorts of phenomena while we were sitting out there that day until the evening. And on my recording device, when I went back about a week later and listened to it, we knew that something had happened to us out there, probably ET related, but I had some things that were on that recording device that pretty much lined up with it. Okay. And so the head of the team was like, all right, y'all, something happened to them out in the field that day. And I think it's time for me to teach you guys remote viewing so that we can look deeper into what's going on. You guys can be more psychically aware of your surroundings. And you can we can do it or we don't do it, but it's all up to you guys. If y'all want to learn it, I'll teach you. And I think every single one of us were like, heck yeah, let's learn it. Okay. And it wasn't going to be an easy task. Like remote viewing is the methods and the mode that we use. We do like coordinate remote viewing, which is where we're given a set of coordinates and that's all we get. Okay. And we trained in this for years. I mean, pretty hardcore for at least 5 years. We trained in remote viewing. We'd spend weekends or 3 days at least at a time as a team together, morning, noon, and night, and like stay at the same place and everything. Like we stayed and we did hardcore training in remote viewing. So we're given a set of coordinates when we're doing coordinate remote viewing. That's all we get. We sit down with a stack of paper and a pen, and we're given those coordinates. Well, those coordinates are assigned to a target. Okay, so we have to have a tasker who is a person who assigns us a target. And that target can be anything from like the Statue of Liberty, okay, to like the Roswell crash, to a property, the paranormal activity on someone's property. It can be a dogman attack. I mean, or an alleged dogman attack. Because see, we can go in and see if these things are real. We can see what happened, if we're assigned that location at that exact date and time. Like I said, we're psychic spies, right? But we can travel through time doing it as well.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. Okay. And the accuracy is mind blowing for a lot of this. Okay. And when you've been doing it long enough, you get pretty good at it.
How long do
And
you need to do it? To
for a
really,
session, oh, for to get good
well,
at it.
yes. Like, let's say I'm not just going to go out there. I don't know. I'm not just going to go out there and learn how to throw a perfect curveball. I love
Right.
baseball too. So I'm not going to learn how to throw a perfect curveball. That takes practice. Like, how long does it take until you're pretty spot on? Maybe not like a pro at it, but you're well off enough to where you're starting to utilize remote viewing as a tool, you know.
100 targets.
100.
100 targets. Yeah.
How long did
Once
that
once you
take?
hit 100, it takes a while. It takes a while.
I bet.
Yeah. It takes a while, and those targets will drain the crap out of you. They'll drain you. A lot of and see, and I'm getting targets where I'm helping solve cold cases, real cold cases, like people that have been murdered and stuff, or unalived, or whatever you want to say. Um, I I get targets of missing people. Okay, and that's a lot of what we do out in the field. We're trying to figure out where all these missing people are going out of these national parks and stuff. Um, I just got a target last week of a young child that was found unalived, as they say on YouTube. Okay.
Hmm.
And so it's very draining, but we're also trained to disassociate ourselves from that and just to go in with the target. We don't know what these targets are because they're blind. We call them blind targets. So I'm given that set of numbers, which is like a set of 8 numbers. They're assigned to a target. I don't know what that target is. I sit down with my paper and my pen and I draw out my charts, and I have a process that I go through. It has stages, and I usually go stage 1 through 5 or so. There's like 6 stages you can potentially hit. Sometimes if I'm not getting a lot of data, I'll go to stage like 4 or stage 3. It just depends. But nonetheless, I get a lot of data. And just all the sensory information starts flooding in when I put my hand and my pen on the paper. The aperture opens up, and I mean it's a process. It's basically a scientific way to use your psychic abilities and chart them out, to locate a blind target is what it is. So, like I said, the militaries use it. They always have. Trying to find, I mean, let's just say hostages that are missing, okay, or what do you call it? Caches of weapons or caches? I think it's cache, but I don't know.
Cachet.
Like cache. Yes, that's the French way. I say it the Southern way. I'm just kidding.
Come on, y'all.
Come on, y'all. It's the cash. So, anyways, yeah. I know, right? I was thinking in my head, I was like, man, I just said, I just like spoke to myself out loud. I took French in high school and college, and I don't even know like what
I
this
only know
sounds
one
like. It's
American.
French. I only know
American.
American. I speak American fluently. Okay. So, so anyways, yeah, man, I tell you what, we have a good time on these shows, don't we?
We
So,
do.
okay.
It's especially whenever, well, I remember back in the day, 2010, when I started doing podcasting, like, man, interviewing some of the greats that aren't with us no more, like John Anthony
Oh
West,
yeah.
Jesse Marcel Jr., and you're like, oh my god, I'm freaking out, and
Yeah.
sometimes I still get a little butterflies, like when it's
Yeah. Oh
somebody
yeah.
like you said, OG comes on the show. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
man, but it's good butterflies,
Yeah.
but
Me too. But we got to
so
have fun too, though, right?
we
So
do,
that's what I do.
and you learn over time, especially the more you do it. It's just like my wife. She says you can just talk to anybody. I can go to in the store. Hey, do you know them? I'm like, no, honey, I don't know them. I'm just, she's like, you're having a full blown conversation with them. You're just
All
walking up to
right.
somebody. But
I'm the same way. You're on the same frequency. That's so important. Like when you're just on that vibe and,
yep. But
being yourself.
but doing this show, you'll learn to. But I know you probably don't go down to a whole lot of conspiracies. Also, that can drain you and kind of make you I'm a very optimistic person, but sometimes you have to look at it both sides. You got to look at the bad and the ugly, the yin and yang, the
Mhm.
as above, so below. You know, you got to look all that the ugliness underneath the layers of the onion and the Russian doll set, and it can drain
Yeah.
you emotionally and physically,
Yeah.
and it makes you like I don't know. But oh, I know what I was wanting to tell you. You said about the my ADD moment, but the when you're doing this remote viewing, a lot of times you feel drained, right?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe not all the time, but maybe some of that drainness is from possibly like psychic vampires or some type of entities in that type of realm space, whatever, are trying to leech onto you and trying to drain you, suck you dry of your energy, or like what like is that possible, or is that just hearsay within the community that that kind of look into those topics?
Oh my God. Okay. First of all, there are energy vampires everywhere. Okay. Even on podcasts and stuff. You got to be careful who you watch. Even on TV shows and everything, everything is pretty much meant to drain us of our life force energy. It really is. And so we have to learn how to protect ourselves energetically. And there are processes in remote viewing where we have to go in, especially on different modes of remote viewing, like energetic remote viewing, for instance, where we're kind of like in a theta state. Okay. And you have to learn to go in and put yourself in like a protective bubble, kind of like your little safe space energetically. And we should do that just when we go to the grocery store every day.
Yeah.
Okay. Because especially with people with like a bright light, a bubbly personality, high vibe, higher frequency. Okay. People want to leech on. Okay. And I say that to everybody to warn you guys. Okay. Because sometimes we feel so drained and it's not even us doing it. It's the people around us. And it's the people that are just leeching onto us. And it's the same with remote viewing too. Now we're taught, and this is a good life lesson, do not engage with the lower vibrational frequencies and the entities. Okay. Don't engage. And I use that in my everyday life. Okay, because I have lower vibrational entities trying to engage with me, and you just gotta ignore it.
So don't use Ouija boards.
No, heck no,
I never
no.
touched it.
I no, don't do Ouija boards if you can help it. Don't do that. Okay, and yeah, I don't do ghost hunting at all. I don't like ghost hunting anymore. I never really did, but I was always interested, especially when you lose a lot of loved ones and you want to communicate with them. Um, in my experience, and I've done ghost box sessions, like I actually paid a guy. There's a guy who was amazing, by the way. His name was Christopher Moon, and he used to come to Atlanta with his, I think it's called a Thomas Edison's telephone to the dead or something like that.
Hmm.
And he would come to this like metaphysical store in Atlanta, and I would like get sessions with him to speak to my brother who had passed away. Because we all want to know like if our loved ones are going to be, if they're okay on the other side. Uh, and there was a time period where I lost a ton of friends and loved ones, my family, my best friends. They were all
It's like,
passing away.
it's like it happens within a short amount of time, like maybe 6 months to a year. It's like, what the,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what's going on here?
It was weird. And it wasn't just like, a lot of people, they'll pass away in threes, right? This
Yeah.
was like threes every couple of months or something. It was wild. Like I had
Mm.
never experienced anything like that before. And super tragic. And I was young too. Back in the day, I was young when all this was happening. And so I just wanted a connection, I guess, and to make sure everybody was okay. Even though I knew inherently everybody was fine, but I still just wanted to say goodbye, and that kind of stuff.
Is that still safe though? Like,
No, that's why. Okay, so I had a mediator. Okay, so that's where I was kind of going with this, is that
yeah,
I
I'm
went
sure
there.
you have
He
to
did
trust
it.
those mediators too, right?
Yes, yes. Well, and he called on his spirit guides and had like a spirit guide on the other side that was like helping him. Tyler, I think was his name, and I was able to do a lot of communication with a middleman, like a couple middlemen right there, like one on the spirit side, one on my side here in the 3D. Um, but when you do like ghost box sessions, I would never do that in my home ever. and I don't even like doing it out in the field. Sometimes our team will do like an SD session. I'm not a fan of that. And I'm not knocking it. It's okay for people to do that. But I've had like hitchhikers come home with me, if you know what those are, like orbs and stuff, like showing up in my house. I have a video of orbs dancing around my son the day that I came home from the meadow when he was little. And so I've had to really focus on protecting my energy and shutting all that down to where they don't attach to me whenever I'm leaving my research areas.
So
Yeah.
Since I came back from Eureka Springs and I interviewed several researchers in person, I like doing in-person interviews also, and one was Trey Hudson.
Trey.
So I reached out to him. It was about 2 weeks later, or a week later. I had had one orb that popped up on my, and I'll show it to you in just a moment. My security footage, and then like a week later, I had another one, but it went from the above the garage, and then it's the same time loop on the, my wife has the app on her phone, same time loop. It goes from the above the garage and then to the side of the house. And then it goes to another camera and it activates that motion detector also. I'll show it to you just a moment before I show, because you talk about all these things. You research a lot of things, but before we go a little bit more in the orbs with the remote viewing, what are some of your biggest skeptics, or maybe not just your biggest skeptics? What do some of the naysayers and skeptics have to say about like remote viewing?
Well, I don't get that a whole lot. I don't get a whole lot of pushback too much. There's only like certain particular, there's a couple people that have been like, "Oh, you're a witch," like accusing me of being a witch. That's really the only thing that I really get, and it's just the people who have like a lot of criticism. It's I'm in the public eye now, and I do a lot of shows and speak at a lot of conferences. So of course I ruffle feathers sometimes, and that's okay. It's not because I'm mean to, but it's just a lot of people aren't ready for the information or they don't understand it. And people are kind of fear what they don't understand. And that's the way I take it. Yeah. So that the only real pushback I ever got was just, being called a witch because I'm a remote viewer, but, or I'm just too woo, when it was actually harder for me to come out publicly as a remote viewer than it was a Bigfoot researcher.
Why's
And
that?
I'm both.
Why's that?
Well, because of the psychic aspect of it. It's a little different. Okay. For
Put her on
whatever
a
reason.
cross, put her on a cross, burn her at the stake.
I got that. I actually did get that. Yeah. I've gotten that before. And it's okay. People don't go after the guys on my team for that. They don't call them witches. Like Trey's a remote viewer. I don't think he's ever gotten the witch thing. It's just, I'm not saying it's because I'm a woman, but it kind of is, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say there's a little stigma there. I would. So before we go into the orbs, and I'll show you those clips. So I have to ask you about Area 51. Have you remote viewed Area 51, and what were your findings with that?
Oh my God. Okay. So here's the thing. I've never remote viewed like stuff that's dangerous. Okay. And there's a lot of targets that are very dangerous. Okay. And can potentially be dangerous. And there's some, like we are told, do not remote view the moon, right? The moon's a big one. And guess what? I remote viewed one day, the moon. And I was going to do a show on it. And about 2 hours before my show was going live, because I just got real comfortable. I got way too comfortable doing all these shows, and I was really pushing the boundaries with remote viewing. I do a show every Thursday night, actually, on my channel, the Cryptid Huntress, where I do a blind remote viewing target that I'm tasked by someone. Usually, it's my friend Barry Littleton, or this past week it was Tyler Koala of Journey to Truth podcast. I spoke at his Journey to Truth conference this past year. Love him and Aaron. And so I only take targets from like either the head of my team, who I trust with my life, or I'd take them from Barry. Barry knows my parameters. Okay. And I took one from Tyler, and I know Tyler's would have some really cool targets. Right. And, yeah, with the moon one, actually, I got a call about 2 hours before my show went live, and I got that proverbial knock at my door, and I was told to keep my mouth shut.
Wow.
So yeah, so that was weird. I went on with my show and I was sweating bullets the entire time. It's in my playlist somewhere. Y'all go look at Apollo 11 moon landing.
Was it like
You can see Jessica sweat on that one.
so this nog was it kind of like the
It wasn't
Men in
physical.
Black? It wasn't physical. Okay.
It wasn't a physical.
What kind of Nogs
It
then?
was a
Like,
message. It was a message from someone who I know. Not I didn't know personally. Like I knew, but I didn't know. And I was told to keep my mouth shut. And I have a healthy dose of respect. And yeah, let's just leave it at that. That's all
I
I'm going to
gotcha.
say. No
I
more
gotcha.
details.
I think I have a few
Okay,
theories, but
yeah, you can have all the theories you want, but I'm getting sweaty thinking about it right now, actually. So
so
yeah, but
so
the Area 51 though, we
oh
can
yeah,
go
the Area
there.
51, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the one that Tyler gave me a blind target, and I didn't know what it was. Tyler, Journey to Truth, and I knew it would be interesting, but he just kind of threw it out there. Said, "Hey, Jess, can you do this like target and whenever you get a chance?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I just as soon as I got to a stopping point with what I was doing that day, within an hour of him asking me, I sat down and I remote viewed these blind coordinates. Didn't know what they were. Got a bunch of data, and it appeared to be something underground and with involving giants and stuff. And I
Mm.
was like, whoa, okay. I sent him all my raw data, like all the pages that I had written out on. And I said, here, I hope I'm not super off target, you know, thinking I was just probably off target, but I was getting a whole lot of like military data. And I was thinking, oh crap, here we go. I'm gonna get in trouble for this one.
Mm.
And so, but it was like military stuff. I heard a lot of like soldiers getting yelled at, but I was way deep underground, so I knew it was some kind of underground facility. And I was picking up on giants, and I picked up on people just being exhausted, and like
Wow.
trains and all sorts of weird stuff going on. And it turned out that it was the target was the 27th floor underground below Area 51, according to testimony given by Colonel Billy Fay Woodard. Okay, and this guy is someone that's like a basically like a SSP secret space program kind of thing, or just a Navy. I guess he was with the U.S. Navy, I think, or Air Force. I can't remember which one, but he was retired, and he had given some testimony saying that he actually, by the way, he was very eccentric. Okay, but he gave testimony that he lived underground for 11 and a half years in Inner Earth. He was the liaison to the Inner Earth beings and the U.S. military. And he gave a really interesting testimony. And Tyler and Aaron were actually going to be doing a series this month on the deep underground military bases in Argatha and Inner Earth and stuff. And so he just gave me that target, and I forgot to tell him my parameters apparently, but it's okay because it turned out to be fine. And all of my data completely aligned with everything that man had said. Okay, and it wasn't just like kind of like could have like, oh, this might mean that. No, I was like quoting that guy in my data with some
Damn.
of the stuff that he was talking about with the Inner Earth and stuff. So
And
yeah, it was cool.
I do have some questions I'd like to ask you about that and giants
Okay.
here in a moment. Let me go ahead and see if I can go ahead and screen share. Boom. This was the first one. This happened like a week after that conference when I interviewed for the first time this year in person, Trey Hudson. This is the over the garage.
Oh,
This
cool.
is the camera over the garage. You see it coming down?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Push pause. So
Wow.
this set off the motion detector. Bugs, I've shown this a few times already this year in interviews, but bugs do not set off the motion detector. They don't. And you'll see bugs. At nighttime, you see bugs all the time, but the motion detectors don't get set off. You know, it's usually by a physical object, uh, cars, people walking the street, you know. But this thing, and you'll see bugs. Those things do not. I keep having people. I've heard people say bugs. No, they do not set off our motion detector. And this gave an alert on the phone.
And it's so transparent too, like translucent. You can see straight through it.
Yep.
That's odd that it would set your
You see
motion
that bug
detector
there?
off.
See that? those things happen
Yeah.
all the time. They little right boop right there. Those things happen all the time, but they don't set off
Wow.
motion detectors. Kind of go swooping down there. So that was the first one. That was the first one. And I didn't get anything on the other side on the side house. I'm about to show you here in a moment. So that was the first one. That's the only thing that we got. That was like a week or so after the conference. And you want to stop. So, and then the next one, if I can pull it up here,
Wow.
this was about a week or so after. This was about a week or so after that first one. And it started over the garage again. It's lower though, somewhere. Here it comes from the right, bottom right. This also set off the
Wow.
motion detector.
Interesting.
And then you see where it's going? It's going to the side of the house. This one gets captured a fluent motion and it set off the motion detector on the other camera.
Oh, wow.
So it's going towards over there where it is,
Uh-huh.
goes toward over there, and right there where the clip ends, sets off the motion detector on the other camera that I'm about to show you. Well, up here,
Wow.
boom. It looks smaller, but it's this. It's from the time frame.
Whoa.
It's the same. It's the same because it came from over there above the garage, and then it went to the side of the house. That's the second where it was heading, right there.
That is so cool. That's really awesome. That's a great capture.
For nighttime, yes, it's
Yeah.
not bad for the cameras.
But that's cool though. And it's going like continuously from one camera to the next. Like that's
That's
unusual that you
what
get that much
Okay,
coverage.
okay. The first one that I showed you, that was only just one clip. That was over the garage.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I know bugs don't set off motion detectors, so it wasn't okay. Okay. Yes, probably an orb. Yes. Okay. But a week later, that one started over the garage again, and then it set off the motion detector on the side of the house and continued. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, get out of here. My wife was freaking out, you know.
Well, do
And
you guys have any kind of like activity in your home, like paranormal stuff going on?
well, just like you, I don't if I'm asleep, I don't want to know if something's looking like right down on me. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Now I'll go investigate and research, do some field investigations elsewhere, but I think I've heard you say before too. I think I don't want to know exactly what's in my house.
Oh
You know
my
what I
gosh,
mean?
right? Well,
Because
yeah,
this is my safe place. You know what I
you're
mean? Like,
talking about those goggles, man. You're talking about those interdimensional goggles. Yeah, that show. I remember saying that.
yep. So go. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, those
Well,
are
go
crazy.
since you brought it up. Go ahead and explain that.
Okay.
Go ahead and explain that, and then we'll talk a little bit about orbs. We'll add the orbs back into it.
Yeah. Okay, so something that I did a show on recently. I didn't remote view this. It's not like a remote viewing show. It was just a show on I think it's called dicyanin. Dicyanin, I think is how you pronounce it.
Uh,
Dye goggles.
yep.
Dicyanin dye goggles. Okay. Y'all look it up, please, because I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Yeah, I'm
But
not
it's
sure how you pronounce it, really.
well, back in the 1920s, a scientist was using this dye with that liquid in it. Uh, he put some of that liquid on some of that dye on a piece of glass and realized that you could see at night with this. So it was like night vision, right? So he made night vision goggles with it. Well, he used it, and apparently, like our military got a hold of this stuff. And what it was is that you could not only see at night, like night vision. This is in the 1920s. You could see people's auras. Okay, so it was like an aura seeing liquid if you put it between pieces of glass. And so they made night vision goggles with this stuff, and they tested them out with on helicopters in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. Okay, and so they gave out these goggles to some of the gunners on the helicopters, and when they put those things on and they were up in the helicopters, they started shooting at each other. okay, amongst the helicopters, because what they saw when they put these goggles on, which is supposed to be just like night vision, they described it as seeing hell, okay, with demons, like demons flying up next to the helicopter and like looking at them, like interacting. They said they could see into another dimension, is what that was. So that's, some of the men literally went mad and lost their mind after they wore those. So, of course, the government outlawed the substance and said it was a poison and toxic. And then they started using it for themselves, okay, for their night vision and some kind of they call them interdimensional demon seeing goggles.
Do you want to help support Beyond Forbidden and receive extra content that's not seen anywhere else? By becoming a patron, a few things you will receive are the full-length 90-minute or 120-minute podcast episode. Members will also receive a private link of the video podcast and will only be exclusive to Patreon members. In-person, face-to-face interviews with some of the most well-known, respected researchers. Behind-the-scenes footage of interviews not seen anywhere else. And that's just a few perks. So what do you have to lose? Cut out one brain-rotting, overly processed Happy Meal a month that doesn't do anything beneficial for your mind, body, and spirit, and become a Patreon for just $5.